Welcome to Living Lit, where conversations spark inspiration to live in truth. Journey together with us to explore what it means to live a liturgical life and walk in the truth of our faith. Let's instill a culture in our hearts, homes, families, and world, living a life cooperating with and walking alongside our Lord. I'm Robyn Brueggemann. Let's be a light, share the light, shine the light, and live lit. Friends, welcome back to Living Lit. In our last episode, I had the joy of visiting with and sharing with you my friend Sylvia Dorham. And she was on to talk about her delightful children's series, The Monks. But guess what? She has another fascinating part to her life that we're going to explore today. Sylvia is also a doula. She's been a doula for 16 years, and she's a homeopathist. And she has spent years walking alongside families, especially mothers, through pregnancy, birth, and natural approaches to health and healing. She's also currently continuing her education through some functional studies, deepening her understanding of how the body works and how we can support it in natural and holistic ways. Today, she's going to introduce us to the world of homeopathy, what it is, how it works, and why so many families are rediscovering these gentle methods of caring for our body. If the word homeopathy is new to you, or maybe something you've heard about but never quite understood, this conversation will be a wonderful introduction. Sylvia offers a free introductory class for those who want to learn more, simply as a way to educate and share with absolutely no pressure. So we're going to talk about that at the end of the show. But she's going to give us a really great introduction to what homeopathy is. It's so interesting, and I know you're going to love this conversation about health, healing, and honoring the incredible design of the human body that God created. And you might be thinking too, because this is kind of a different area that we're going to tap into, which is health. And when we don't feel good, it's hard for us to serve others well. It's hard for us to serve our family well, and it's hard to serve God and be ready, willing, and able to say yes to the things he's inviting us into. So we are definitely going to be bringing in some different health-related episodes into Living Lit because our health is so much a part of our life, and we are totally mind, body, and soul. So I'm super excited to get to know more about homeopathy. So Sylvia, welcome back.
Robyn, it's so kind of you to have me back again. Thank you.
I'm so excited. So people can catch you in the past episode where they'll learn more about you as mom, wife, author, and then we even touched on different flavors of Catholicism, which
Yes,
was
we
really
did.
fun too. So I encourage people, if they missed that episode, to go back. But will you give a refresher on who you are, Sylvia?
I will. So my name is Sylvia. I am the wife of a Byzantine Catholic priest. So in the eastern side of the Catholic Church, we have a married priesthood. So I am married to Father Elias, and we have 10 children and 3 grandchildren and 2 dogs, and we live in Atlanta, Georgia.
I love it. So this is so fascinating. Yet another facet of Sylvia that I'm just like, whoa, I need to learn more from you. Let me sit at your feet. So I first found out you're a doula, and then from there found out you are into homeopathy. And so it's kind of fun because one of our phone conversations, you were actually at school that week when we spoke,
Yes.
and you're in schooling for the functional side of things to go
Yes.
deeper. I'm going to soon invite you in to talk about that, but let's start with your life as a doula. Will you tell people what is a doula?
Doula, well, the word doula means servant or even slave. It's not as bad as it sounds, really, but if you have had a baby before, you remember that feeling when you were having your first baby of where things were kind of ramping up and getting a little more active and you didn't know what was going on and you were worried and anxious and you wish that the nurse would be able to just stand at your side the whole time, but she can't because she has other patients. Just that feeling of, what do I do at a very important time in your life? So a doula comes alongside the mom and the dad, if he's present as well, and serves them and walks them through the birthing process. So from the time that labor starts until a few hours after the baby is born, a doula is there to minister to mom, to position her, to help her do the things that need to be done in order to help the baby descend in the most efficient way, to give confidence to the dad, to make sure that he eats something, to provide those little comforts that you need. In a lot of ways, it's like being a mom to the woman giving birth. When you're giving birth, as you may remember, it is the one time in your life when you want your mom more than just about any other time. And so the doula does a lot of the work that a mom would do in that situation.
So beautiful. So you've been doing this for over 16 years.
Yes, yes.
Do you happen to know how many babies have you helped bring into the world?
Close to 100.
Wow. Wow. And you were telling me that you have some moms that you're working with right now.
Oh,
And
yes.
one of the most fascinating things that I learned from you is that you and doulas in general, right, have such a high success rate in turning or getting a breech baby to turn. Like, I am so fascinated. So share a little bit about that.
Well, if the doula knows about homeopathy, there's a much higher success rate than if she doesn't. There are many different ways to turn a breech baby. All of them are invasive unless you're using homeopathy. And I know we'll get into more what homeopathy is in a little while, but there is a particular homeopathic medicine called pulsatilla. And when pulsatilla is used with a pregnant mom near the end of her pregnancy, when she's been told that her baby is bottom down instead of head down, then the pulsatilla will actually affect a mechanical change in her body and will help that body turn the baby around.
That is wild.
Isn't that incredible?
It is.
If you were God and you were inventing medicine, wouldn't you want to invent a medicine that was gentle and effective and had no side effects?
Oh, yes.
And that's what homeopathy is.
Yes. I
So
think
we'll talk more.
that's the perfect introduction to homeopathy. But I do have a question. I'm not sure if I asked you this before behind the scenes. Were you a doula first and then got into homeopathy?
Yes.
Okay.
I became a doula. Like I said, I have 10 children. So we have 2 by adoption. So I've given birth 8 times. And the first 2 times were in military hospitals. And after those 2 experiences, I realized that I needed somebody with me, and that if I were trying to, look outside of myself at how to help other people, a good way to help other women would be to accompany them through this process, which can be daunting, it can be scary, but can also be beautiful and triumphant and such a lovely spiritual event if you have no fear. So as the doula, I help to take away the fear that people have.
That is so beautiful, and it's so true with
Yes.
labor. The funny thing
Yes.
is that so as many people know, I have delivered 7 babies, and I actually, in fact, Spike and I were just talking about this last week, how I actually I had more fear the more I had, which is
Yeah.
weird. That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well,
I
in
think
the
it's
sense
because
that
I know what it's like, you know what it feels like, maybe your eyes are open to more things that can actually go wrong, and so the more pregnancies I had, the more scared I got, and towards my last pregnancy, I was like, "You know what? Maybe the baby can just stay inside forever because I'm just too afraid to let it out."
that is such a real thing, and that really does slow down labor. What's going on in your
Interesting.
mind totally affects your cervix's ability to dilate.
Wow.
It's all about the mind. So there are a
Wow.
lot of tricks that doulas carry in their bag and up their sleeves to kind of help mom focus on not the fear.
Hmm.
Very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm wishing I had a doula. If I could go
I think
back in
part of
time.
it too is that we tell our horror stories to women who haven't had babies yet, or to women who are pregnant. Like, why would you tell something bad that happened to you to someone who's
Yeah,
experiencing
right.
a pregnancy right then? That's one thing we can all change, is don't tell the bad stories to women who are pregnant.
Right.
Only the beautiful outcomes, and then
Yeah.
we deal with the rest of that afterward.
Good point. Good wisdom there. I would very much agree. Because the last
Yeah.
thing we want to do is discourage people from having babies.
Well, and that's the other part, is that it becomes such a production to have a baby that people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that again. But there's nothing better we can give to our children than a sibling. And when you actually are holding that baby in your arms and you have a moment of euphoria, hopefully, or when you first latch them on to breastfeed and there's that moment of, oh, and you gaze into your baby's eyes and there's such joy. No one ever talks about that.
Yeah.
They only talk about how
Yeah.
difficult it is, etc. But there are these moments of such exquisite joy after having a baby.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is such a gift, isn't it? There's nothing
It
like
really.
childbirth at all. Like, it's incredible. So incredible. Yeah. So tell us then how you added homeopathy into this. And then let's talk about what is homeopathy, because I
Right.
was too afraid to ask anybody until you said that's what you were. And then I had the courage to be like, what is that exactly?
I'm
Because I've
so
heard of it
glad
and
you
I want to
did.
know. So yeah, how did you get into that? And then let's tell people what homeopathy is.
Yeah. Well, um, I was a doula in a major metropolitan area for a long time, and I saw a lot of what happens to women if they don't know that they have choices about their care during the labor and delivery process. And it hurt me. It hurt my heart. It changes, it almost damages something in you when you see things, people not receiving the care that you would want them to have, especially at that extremely vulnerable moment when you're giving birth. So, I set about trying to find all the ways that I could increase my knowledge and be better at helping babies get into the right position and helping moms to be able to mentally pass through this rite of passage from maidenhood to motherhood. And about many years into it, we had this little COVID event happen. And I saw firsthand how people were not treated in the hospitals the way that we would want them to be treated. And so I began looking around for different forms of medicine. We all heard about different kinds of medicine that maybe would have been more helpful during COVID and whatnot, and how many of them were no longer available. And when we got to the end of that, I said, Lord, I don't ever want to be in that position again. I want to have on hand with me whatever I need in order to treat the people who are under my care. As moms, we're caring for our kids, we're caring for our husband, we're caring for the animals, we're caring for the plants, we're caring for our neighbors and our church members and all the people who come and ask us what they should do. There are a lot of people who come under our care. So I thought, okay, I've just got to start doing research. So, in all the things you hear over social media and whatnot, what I heard was that there would be another pandemic and that the next one was going to be smallpox. I don't know if that's true or not, but I used that as a jumping off point. And I got on the internet and I started looking at, what would be a natural way of overcoming smallpox. And it has to be natural because I don't want it to be taken away. I don't want anyone saying, well, this is no longer on the market and you can't get it. And if you do get it and you have it in your possession, then you could be, charged with whatever. So I wanted to stay out of all that mess. So I'm looking around and looking around. I found essential oils. And so, I had used essential oils for a while. But, there wasn't really an essential oil that would help so much if someone had contracted smallpox. So I came upon a website that homeopathy to me. And I thought, okay, homeopathy, that home must mean that it's a home remedy. So it's going to be like garlic in your socks or, extra turmeric in your food. And those things are good, but that is not what homeopathy is. And what I discovered on that website was that there's this 250-year-old form of medicine that has been used all around the world, is currently in use now in every place of God's dominion, to quote the psalm, and was used in the United States almost exclusively in some places, but very, very commonly up until about 1920. So, of course, that whetted my appetite, and I started digging and found that pretty soon I was in a deep dive to find out more about homeopathy. And by the way, there's a homeopathic medicine for smallpox, and it's called Thuya, and it is made out of arbor vitae. Think of how many arbor vitae trees we have around us because it's used for landscaping. And that tree, when prepared homeopathically, is the traditionally used medicine for smallpox. Okay, there's the tip of that iceberg. So I got onto that website. And by the way, that website is joettecalabrese.com, JoetteCalabrese.com. And, I was prepared to be underwhelmed. But when I went there, she has this beautiful introduction to what homeopathy is, lots and lots of courses, an incredible amount of free information. And of course, that's where I started because as we talked about before, I always want to check and see, is this legit? Is this for real? Is this something that I can trust? And so I just started diving in and munching and nibbling on all the wonderful bits of information. I maybe got a little obsessed with it. But, when I started giving my family these homeopathic medicines and they started getting better from things like debilitating environmental allergies and headaches that we had no cure for and, menstrual cramps. And then in my family, there's a lot of mental illness. And when I found that there were homeopathic medicines for mental illness and I gave them to people in my family and they were improving a lot, in a short amount of time, I went, okay, hold on. We need to do some real study on this stuff. So Joette has a 1-year-long academy. So I took that. And then she has a follow-on year. So I took that too. And then I started seeing my own clients and helping other people find the homeopathic medicines that work for them. So that's how I got into it. But let me tell you a little bit about homeopathy. Back in the 1700s, there was a doctor in Germany named Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. And by the way, he's the only physician that has his own statue in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Just saying.
That's pretty cool.
So he was a regular general practitioner, which in those days meant that you went around to people's houses when they came for you and you dispensed the medicines at your disposal using the tools that you had available. And in those days, the tools that were available were generally bloodletting, where they would come and remove a quantity of blood from you, not just once, not just twice, but several times in succession in an attempt to bleed the disease out of you. They had another very common medicine called mercury, and they would give tablespoons full of mercury to people who were sick. Then there were poultices and there were herbs and whatnot, but Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who was nobody's fool, saw what happened when you gave people tablespoons full of mercury. And you know how they've stopped using mercury thermometers just because if you brush up against it, bad things can happen. So he finally became so frustrated with the fact that as much as he wanted to help people, he had no tools at his disposal that were actually helping. And so he said, look, done. I am not doing this doctor thing anymore until I can find some tools that actually help. Well, he also had a big family. He had 10 or 12 kids, and so it wasn't that he could do nothing. But since he was a polyglot, he knew a whole bunch of different languages, including ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek. He became a translator, and he gravitated toward the ancient Greek medical texts. So he was translating them in order to support his family when he came across this idea of like cures like, which is the foundational sort of idea behind homeopathy. And what he discovered that meant was if you take a substance, in this case, the first thing he did was he took some tree bark from the cinchona tree. If you take that and you were to eat the tree bark, that particular tree bark would give you a fever, you would have chills, you would have red-rimmed eyes, you would feel like that icky malaise when you just kind of like, oh, I can't go anywhere. Which, interestingly enough, happen to be the same symptoms as malaria. When you get malaria, you feel the same way. It has the same effect on your body. And he found that if he took the cinchona bark and he ground it up and he put it in a vat of alcohol and let it sit for 20 or so days, then drained the alcohol out and threw away the bark, he had a tincture of cinchona bark. But instead of just ingesting the tincture of cinchona bark, he took 1 drop of it and put it in a glass jar that had 99 drops of alcohol in it. 1 drop of cinchona, 99 drops of alcohol, and he shook it. And then he took 1 drop of that mixture and put it into another bottle with 99 drops of alcohol in it. So again, 100 drops, shook it, and then again, and then again, and then again. By the time he had done that 6 times, we know now that there were almost no molecules of the cinchona bark left. There were still a few, but so few that he was actually below Avogadro's number. So if you remember from your chemistry class in high school, Avogadro's number is the level at which you consider a substance itself. If you have less than Avogadro's number of molecules, it's not really that stuff anymore. There's so few molecules. Well, when he has diluted it 6 times like that and shaken it, there's very, very little of the substance left. And yet, if he gave that diluted drop of medicine, of the cinchona bark, it had lowered the negative effects of eating the cinchona bark, and it had raised the healing effects of the cinchona bark, so that now this juice, this diluted juice from the cinchona bark, when he gave it to people, would cure their malaise, their fever, their chills, their red eyes. And he said, hold on a minute. If something in its full or gross form causes a disease, then if I dilute it enough, it will help your body overcome the disease. And of course, being a thinking man, both a philosopher and a scientist, he immediately started diluting every single thing he could come up with. And he made medicines out of oyster shell and sulfur and everything that he could lay his hands on. Of course, trees and roots and berries and everything, including snake venom. If you think about if a poisonous snake bites you, the place of the bite will first get red and swell, and then it turns blue and purple and will get gangrenous. So in taking the venom of a snake and doing that dilute and shake until there's almost no molecules of snake venom left, if you then ingest that, it will help a body overcome gangrene.
That's amazing.
It's also good if you have like purple and blue, like bruises and whatnot, it's good for that. So he, of course, when he began talking about what his discoveries, people began to come to him as patients. And for the first time in his life, he finally had tools that he could use to help people's bodies overcome these diseases. He became the celebrity doctor of Europe. His first wife died. He married his second wife. She too became a homeopath, the first female physician who was generally accepted in Paris at the time. They moved to France, and they saw 100 patients a day.
Wow.
Because these medicines are effective, they have no side effects at all, and they're inexpensive because they're made from everything around you. Again, if you were God and you were making a medicine for your dearly beloved children, would you not want to give them a medicine that kept them from growing a third arm when they took it? You know, you have a headache, but sorry, you're going to grow an arm out the middle of your back by taking the medicine for it. And homeopathy is everything that we want in a medicine. So literally no side effects. You can't take too much of it. If you take too much of it over a long period of time, when your body doesn't need it, your body will say to you, hey, I don't need this anymore. But you're not gonna die from taking it. If your child ingests an entire bottle, you don't need to call poison control. That type of thing. So anyway, now it traveled from Germany to France and then all around the known world, came across the ocean to the United States. In the United States in the 1800s and 1900s, there were homeopathic hospitals, homeopathic medical schools, homeopathic doctors, and this is the kicker. There were homeopathic mental institutions where people went to get better. Okay, where are those all now, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
they're not here now. One other thing about the homeopathic community in the United States, they accepted women and people of color, where the allopathic or the Western style medicines and the American Medical Association would not accept any of them. So there were women homeopaths and there were people of color helping long before the regular allopathic medicines would accept them in medical schools. So fantastic medicine. Everything was going along swimmingly, but then some of the green-eyed monster arose, and both the green-eyed monster in the sense of jealousy, but also money. So there was a man who lived in the United States in the 1990s. His name was John D. Rockefeller. You may have heard of him. And he was in oil. And his desire was to use all the parts of the oil. Because what happens is when you refine oil, you have all these leftover stuff from the oil refinement. And he wanted something to do with those byproducts so he wouldn't just throw them away. He was a good businessman. So what he started doing was figuring out ways to make those oil refining byproducts into medicines. And those medicines, he would get a patent for each one of those medicines. So that in order to use those medicines, you had to pay a lot of money, which meant that he made a lot of money. So he was encouraging people to use his patented medicines, even though he himself used only homeopathic medicine. So he hired a man named Mr. Flexner, and Mr. Flexner went around to all the medical schools in the United States to see which of them were supporting Mr. Rockefeller's patented medicines. And to those medical schools, he funneled the equivalent in today's dollars of millions of dollars. And it wasn't long before there were more allopathic or Western style medicine medical schools than there were homeopathic. And then the American Medical Association said, if you're a homeopath, you can't belong to our organization. If you're a doctor, an allopathic doctor, and you ever consult with a homeopath, you can't belong to our organization. And if you're a doctor and you marry a homeopath, you can't belong to our organization. So things fell out of favor, clearly, and we are in the situation that we're in today where medicines can be. Oh, I just talked to a woman this morning, and her medicine is $6,000. She doesn't have coverage by her insurance. And in order to be able to get pregnant, they are saying she needs to have this medicine. So what's a body to do? And by the way, when you take that medicine, it's going to completely remove the lining of your gut so that you're going to have gut issues. And we know that the gut is related to the brain. So on top of the gut issues, you're also going to have, emotional and mental concerns that come up as well from taking the medicine that you're trying to take to heal your body enough to get pregnant. I mean, so along comes homeopathy. There's been a great resurgence in people interested in homeopathy because it works. There are now more than 6,000 medicines. We have this book, which is a symptom dictionary of all the symptoms you can possibly think of and what homeopathic medicines have traditionally been used to treat them. Here is a book of about a quarter of the medicines that are available right now, telling what they have been used for in their life. In India, of course, you can imagine, because this medicine is less expensive. It's especially popular in places where people are poor. I do want to add that the royal family in England has a homeopath on staff, and that's the main doctor that they used for Queen Elizabeth and her mother, the Queen Mother. And you know how long both of them lived. In fact, Queen Elizabeth didn't die until after she got a certain treatment for COVID.
Wow.
So anyway, there are so many thinkers and literary people and celebrities who use homeopathy. So it seems like when you have the ability to choose what kind of medical care you can use, people choose homeopathy.
Yeah.
Over here, we're back over in India now. And for 150 years, a family, the Banerjee family, they're physicians. They have used homeopathy on the masses that come to them. There is currently right now a clinic in Kolkata, the Banerjee Clinic, and they see 1,200 patients a day.
My word.
So they have developed these little recipes, they call them protocols, of which homeopathic medicines are effective on which type of conditions. And we collectively, the homeopaths of the world and this clinic, have used homeopathy on every single condition known to man. Now, not every single person is completely cured, but there are some pretty miraculous things that happen. As a doula, you know how terrible that morning sickness can be at the beginning of pregnancy. So there's a terrific medicine made out of, well, it's called tobacco. What do you think it's made out of?
Tobacco.
Exactly. And if you're a person who's ever smoked a cigarette or chewed some tobacco, you know that at the beginning, it makes you nauseous and you want to vomit. And so that's a perfect example of how the symptoms that you get from ingesting the gross form or the whole form, if you make it into a homeopathic medicine, it will help your body overcome those same symptoms. So I gave her the tobacco. She had not been able to eat anything substantial for weeks. She took it and was eating within 30 minutes.
Wow.
It's not always that dramatic, but I can tell you, like, my husband had truly debilitating environmental allergies. We couldn't go out. HEPA filter, during spring and fall, forget it. We never saw him. Always squirting something up his nose, swallowing pills, just trying to overcome all of that. And it took a full year with homeopathic medicines, but he doesn't have those allergies anymore.
That's amazing.
We could go on and on and on with them. So clearly it's something worth looking into. And that pulsatilla that can turn around a breech baby.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
So there, I've chattered on long enough.
Well, it's so fascinating. So
Is
a lot of people I know have the question, so I just want to address this quick too. How does it differ from herbal medicine, especially? And I remember you and I had talked about this behind the scenes too, because there is a difference, right?
between herbs and
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
So
can you talk into
herbs,
that?
sure. So herbs are very effective in certain, for the things that they've been used for traditionally, but you have to have access to them. You have to prepare them in a certain way, and you can't control the strength of them.
Sure.
So you might have access to a great medicinal garden and the ability to make lots of tinctures, but you're still going to be limited by the strength of the medicine, the quality of the plants that you used, etc. And we also herbals we've used on this, a fraction of the conditions that humans have had. So it's not quite as broad reaching. It's more difficult to make, and you can't control the strength of it.
Sure.
Whereas the homeopathic medicine, we now have 250 years of scientific study, and there is a lot, I want to say again, a lot of scientific studies that have been done on homeopathic medicines because people are like, what is this stuff? Is it some sort of woo woo like energy thing, or is it, is it witchcraft? Is it something? And the answer is no, it's not. It is like electricity before Benjamin Franklin figured out what to do with it. It's this power that broke apart a tree when a lightning bolt struck the tree. They didn't have the means to measure exactly what was going on, but they knew that something happened. And in the same way, homeopathy is nanopharmacopy. So it's using nano doses of medicines. And we are just now in the scientific realm of things, of medicine, we are just now beginning to explore nanopharmacology. As time goes by, we'll probably understand better exactly how it works, the mechanism of how it works. But for now, we know that when you take a substance and you dilute it and shake it and dilute it and shake it and dilute it and shake it, it reduces the negative effects and it brings out the curative effects of the substance. That's all
Yeah.
we know.
It's so fascinating.
Wasn't that
Because then, now if we were to look at like conventional medicine, let's say, it's not even the same approach then, right?
totally
Because,
different?
yeah, homeopathy is like treats like, where conventional medicine is
Conventional medicine is more like squash the symptoms. You're having a
Mhm.
headache, okay, let's make the headache go away. And the problem is when you squish a symptom, you're eradicating the message that your body is giving you. In homeopathy, we say, oh, you have a headache? What kind of headache? How does it feel? When does it happen? How do you feel better? What makes it worse? All of those things, because we're using those as clues to narrow down which medicine it is that will help your headache. So
That's
we want
incredible.
symptoms instead of mushing them. The other problem that happens when you mush a symptom is that it goes deeper into your body.
Mm.
So, for instance, a child who has, what's a good example? Like a skin allergy. And there's an eruption on your skin. You go to the doctor, they give you a steroid cream. You put a steroid cream on the baby and maybe several times, and suddenly they've got a gut problem. And then you take antibiotics to take care of the gut problem, and suddenly you've got worse skin, and now you've got mental issues, or you have an autoimmune disease. So there's this progression of getting worse. The disease is worsening as you take more and more allopathic medicines. And that is not something that happens with homeopathy. In fact, you take homeopathy and then the object is to be done taking homeopathy. It's like downloading a software patch into your computer. So you take this medicine, it reminds your body how to cure that, how to fix it, how to get over it. And your body's like, oh yeah, thanks. And it gets over the illness and you don't have it anymore. It uproots the illness.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, tinctures and herbs and whatnot. A good modality, but it doesn't uproot.
Yeah.
Whereas the homeopathy will actually uproot the condition.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've told me like your husband's story more in depth behind the scenes, and that was with allergies, right? And that's
Right.
just incredible. Like, yeah. And you've shared other stories as well. So, what are some basic remedies that a family would often begin with? And I know that you've shared with me that, you have this desire to help others, but you really wanted as a mom and a grandma to be able to treat your family if, especially heaven forbid, we had some sort of crisis take
Event.
place, event
Yep.
in our world where we couldn't go to the doctor if we wanted to, but we can instead learn how to care for our family in a natural way for our
Yes.
bodies that
Natural.
God gave us.
Effective. Yes.
Yes.
And respecting the body as this beautiful, not really machine, this beautiful thing made in God's image that
Yeah.
houses a soul. You're just right. I do want people to know what to do themselves.
Yeah.
That's, in the Catholic Church, there's this idea of subsidiarity, which means you take care of a problem at its lowest level. So we don't run to the Pope when we want to change the color of the carpet in the church. That happens with the grounds committee or, somebody quite
Yeah.
a bit lower than the Holy Father. And in the same way, medicine belongs in the hands of the mothers. This is
Mm.
just who we are. They come and get Band-Aids for us. They come and get from us. They come and get, aspirin and whatnot. But we have the ability to help them get better and then to uproot the disease if we use homeopathy. So
Mm.
yes. So I do believe that every family should have homeopathy in their medicine kit. And probably the most common one, and one that most people have heard of, is called arnica. Arnica is made from a flower that grows up at high elevation in the mountains. And it's used for bruises and bumps and concussions, head injuries, injuries from mammograms, injuries from all sorts of different things. If you have bruising and swelling, you use arnica for it. If your muscles are sore after a workout, you take arnica. What's very interesting about arnica is so much work has been done scientifically about it that plastic surgeons actually have an arnica protocol that they give to people before surgery. You take the arnica before and immediately after the surgery and then ongoing for a couple of weeks. And what they've found is that it reduces swelling and bruising after plastic surgery by 30%.
Wow.
30%.
Wow.
So there are actually companies who sell arnica under different trade names, and it's part of the protocol that you get when you go to the hospital. So, arnica definitely, especially if like me, you have had a lot of boys and they were always banging things and bruising things. There's another medicine that's really important when you have girls, and this is that same pulsatilla. If you have a young girl and her cycles maybe haven't worked themselves out yet, or there's just stuff that's not, things surrounding her cycle that are not functioning properly, pulsatilla is a great medicine for helping her cycles just kind of even out. For moms who are overwhelmed and overworked and underpaid and are at the point in life where they're just like, I have got to get away. I don't want to see my family. I don't want to smell my family. It just is not working for them. There's a medicine called sepia, which deals with just that, that overwhelm when you've just had too much to do. You're one person and you've got to do the jobs of 6 people. Sepia is a fantastic medicine for that bubbling hormonal state
Mhm.
that we're in. That's
Yeah.
another good one. There's medicines for epilepsy. There's
Wow.
medicines for breathing problems, pneumonia, bronchitis, sinus issues, kids with behavioral issues, ADD, autism. A
Amazing.
clinic over in India treats cancer, and the 2 doctors that were in charge up until when they died around the COVID time, they would regularly come to the United States and lecture at Kennedy Krieger and NIH and the big hospitals, the Mayo Clinic, that are interested in other ways of taking on cancer.
Wow. That's
So
incredible. When
yeah,
you'd even talked to me about, you and I had talked about even ways of treating anxiety and depression, which are
depression.
so on the rise in
Yeah,
our
especially among women.
times. Yes. And
Yeah,
like you say, because we're trying to do so many things, whether God wants us to or not. We just do a lot as women, but
we
men
do.
do too. And you
Oh
even
yes.
have there's like a protocol, something to treat that depression
Yeah,
and
yeah,
anxiety. Because there again, there's all these drugs, prescriptive drugs, conventional medicine drugs that one can take. But then they do come with the side effects and stuff. So I just found that so fascinating. Like it's just amazing how you can basically treat everything through homeopathy in a natural way using what God, it's basically taking things from his creation and using them
exactly.
to treat people.
Remember in the book of Revelation, it talks about how the leaves on the tree are for the health of the nations.
Mm,
And in a way, it's like that. It's like God has sort of hidden away all of everything that we need to heal ourselves. And instead, we choose this super expensive gunk that, makes us really sick.
yeah, yeah. So tell us about now you're adding on yet another layer to your health practice because you're
Yes.
like a practitioner, right? Is
Hmm.
that what you would be
Yep.
considered? So tell us about that. So now you're layering on a functional side of that.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
awesome.
There's, of course, a baby being born has a lot of twists and turns that he or she has to make in order to be born. There are actually 7 turns that the baby has to make in order to get under that pubic bone and be born. And sometimes the baby's not in the right position for that. Or mom has had a pelvic injury or has had a tailbone fall. And so her tailbone is out of whack or in the wrong place, or there's so many different things that can happen. And so the baby's not in an optimal position to get out the most efficiently. So God really worked a miracle by, I was at a birth. And after the birth, I come and see the family and the baby. And the dad said to me, "You got to come see, my cousin is coming and she does this thing with babies." And I was like, "Great, a thing with babies. Okay. All right, I'll be there." And so I went, and this woman took the baby in her arm, and he was a little twisted. You know how sometimes babies are like this, or they have the torticollis with their neck kind of stretched out, and the baby was like that. It was a long birth. And she held the baby in her arms and she went, and that baby just relaxed, and his head went back where it was supposed to be. And after that, he had no more trouble with colic you know, and then, working on the mom to put everything back into place. Sometimes things get a little knocked out of whack when you're giving birth. So I said, I need to know more about that. So I've been in a school in Oklahoma, which is where you and I both talked the first time, where I'm learning more about how functionally to move bones and muscles back into the place where they belong.
Wow. So how does that differ from like a chiropractor?
Well, the chiropractor is an actually licensed physician who does this in a hospital or clinic type
Okay.
capacity.
Yeah.
Whereas I will have a license, it will be a massage bodywork license, which is
Okay.
kind of that's where this falls.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
the cup that falls into. So I'll have that when I'm done. And then I go to my individual doula clients, and we just
Yeah.
work on making sure everything's in the right position for birth.
Wow. So
So
you will have kind of like this complete little package for your patients
yes.
of you're a
Yes,
doula, and
exactly.
then you have your homeopathy, and then you'll have the functional side of it to help.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's
That's
really wonderful.
incredible.
God has been so good. It points to the fact that we have an intelligent creator.
We sure do.
He created us. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And if we're willing to listen to perhaps some of the not conventional ways of helping bodies and poking at the body, because our immune systems know how to do all of this. Just, poking the body to do the healing that it needs to do. Wonderful things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you encourage families now for someone who's potentially hearing this for the first time, where they're just really getting introduced to homeopathy and intrigued, and probably like many people they're not finding healing going the
Right.
conventional
Other
way.
routes, right?
What would you say to someone who's listening like that?
First thing I would say is don't throw out Western medicine. We need Western medicine for emergencies, for surgeries, and for diagnoses. Our doctors today are such good diagnosticians. They have had so much experience through medical school and their internships and their residencies of learning to diagnose things. And those diagnoses help us find the right homeopathic medicines. So we need them. So, number one, don't throw it all away, but consider that there is another form of medicine that might be useful to you and your family. And in order to get into that, you need some education. So I know that you, Robyn, are going to host a class, and certainly it would be wonderful if people would, let you know that they were interested and want to come to a class. That website that I told you about, joettecalabrese.com, tons of information. When you go to that website, there's a little banner at the top that says, "What is homeopathy?" Go there first and watch all the little videos about what this is. And then come to a class and get an idea of how we can apply this to your house. The beautiful thing is it's so individualized, and you can put together your own kit of medicines that have to do with the activities your family does or the health concerns that they usually have.
That's awesome. And I just was remembering that when my sister and I met with you for that first introductory class, that it came up that you can actually treat your animals in the same way, like your
Yes.
dogs. And
And your plants.
yes, and your
How's that?
plants. So
Yes,
that is
yes.
super, super cool. And I know my sister, she has dogs, was just like so intrigued by that too. And So yeah, just so, so neat. So yeah, so I will be working with you behind the scenes, and we're going to try to set up a time for that introductory class for those of you listeners who are like, okay, I want to know a little bit more about this. Sylvia's class is free and it's just educational, and it's kind of that next step that someone would take into, okay, I'm interested. I need a little more clarity. I want a little more information on if this is something that would be something our family wants to look into or not. No pressure at all. My goal is to just introduce you to some different things like this that you may not have had pop into your path, and just to have an awareness and an understanding of the resources and the tools and just different options that are out there for you as a family. Definitely be praying on it too. The Lord is going to lead you to different things that he wants you to be introduce you to. And so be praying on that as well. The Lord, he wants us all well. He wants us to find healing
Yes.
because, like I said in the beginning, we can't serve him or anybody else to the best of our ability when we're not feeling well, or there are different things, different obstacles in the way concerning our
So
health.
true.
So when we can be more healthy, mind, body, and soul, we are able to just serve and worship him the way he intends us to.
Beautifully said.
So, Sylvia, what would you like to leave our guests with? You're always so wise, and I so appreciate your
Thank
wisdom.
you. Thank you. God is good to us. I think I would like to say to the moms, God sees you. God knows what you're going through. God understands how much of yourself you are pouring into these little beings that are coming up underneath you. God knows what you're enduring. God wants you to love him like he loves you. He wants to be in contact with you on a daily basis. He wants to speak into your heart and just love you with that super fulfilling love that we're always chasing after. So don't give up. Don't give up, because there will be a reward at the end. And in the end, we will not regret sticking with it.
Amen. That's so encouraging. Sylvia, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's just been a treat. And listeners, I know that you are feeling the same way. Sylvia, it's just so great to learn from. And it's just been so great to have had you open this window for us into the world of homeopathy, and for sharing how your work supports families and honors the incredible design of the human body. Well, friends, if today's conversation sparked your curiosity, remember we're going to be looking into offering this free introductory course just to give you the basics of homeopathy in a simple and approachable way with absolutely no pressure, just an opportunity to learn more. And of course, don't forget to check out Sylvia's sweet little monk books at Tan Books, and be sure to check out that episode if you missed it last time. And until next time, keep living lit, living in the truth, and bringing the light of Christ into the little church that you call home. We'll see you next time, friends. Thanks for joining us today. Remember to like, subscribe, and share Living Lit, and reach out with topics you'd like tackled at livinglit@sfcatholic.org. And be the light, shine the light, share the light, and live lit.